In this state of dhyana, as form vanishes and receptiveness manifests, the practicer may misconceive the appearing bright emptiness as devoid of nature, thereby giving rise to the idea of extinction, which implies that the law of causality is invalid. This relative voidness causes him to develop an empty mind, which implies annihilation. This is harmless if he knows that it is not sainthood. But if he regards it as such, he will succumb to the demon of emptiness, who will control his mind and cause him to criticize those observing the rules of pure living as men of Hinayana, and to claim that all bodhisattvas awakened to the void can dispense with all prohibitions. Such a person usually indulges in meat and wine in the presence of his believing patrons, and leads a licentious life. Because of the demon's influence, he controls them firmly, and they do not suspect him. As time passes, they will all regard excrement, urine, meat, and wine as empty and good for food. They will break the rules of morality and discipline, and will commit all sorts of sins. The practicer will thus lose all benefit from the dhyana so far achieved, and will fall into the lower states. In this state of dhyana, as form vanishes and receptiveness manifests, the practicer may cling to the empty brightness, which will then penetrate his mind and even his bones. Suddenly he will feel strong love for it, which drives him mad and develops his intense desire of it. This is a condition of still comfort, which he cannot control for lack of wisdom, and which misleads him into all sorts of desires. It is harmless if he knows that it is not sainthood, but if he regards it as such, he will succumb to the demon of desire, who will control his mind and cause him to proclaim desire as the Bodhi path, and to teach to laymen the practice of universal desire, saying that sexual indulgence will make them sons of the Dharma. This demon's influence will prevail in the Dharma-ending age, and will affect stupid people, who will number as many as hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. When the demon is weary of the practicer's misdeeds, he will leave the latter's body, which will become a sorry wreck, to suffer all the miseries inflicted by the royal law. For deceiving others, he will fall into the unintermittent hell. Thus he will lose all benefit from the dhyana so far achieved, and will sink into the lower states. Ananda, these 10 states of dhyana come from the intermingling of the second aggregate of receptiveness with meditative mind. Deluded and wayward practicers do not know their own capabilities, cannot distinguish these states when they manifest, and wrongly declare that they have attained the holy rank. By so doing, they break the rule against lying, and so will fall into the uninterrupted hell. After my nirvana, in the Dharma-ending age, you should proclaim this teaching, so that living beings will awaken to it, that the heavenly demons cannot take advantage of such states, and that practicers can be on their guard and realize the supreme Tao. The 10 states affected by the third aggregate of conception, or sanjna. Ananda, in the cultivation of samadhi, when the second aggregate of receptiveness ceases to hinder the practicer, although he is still in the worldly stream, his mind can now escape from his body like a bird from its cage. From his worldly state, he can now achieve the 60 succeeding holy states of bodhisattva development into Buddhahood, and thereby take any form at will, free to move anywhere without hindrance. This is like a man who talks in his sleep, and though he does not know what he says, his words are in order and comprehensible, and those who are not asleep understand him. This is the third aggregate of conception, which conditions his meditation. If all his stirring thoughts stop, he will be rid of the thinking process, and his clear mind will be like a mirror rubbed clean of the covering dust, and will throw light upon his present incarnation from birth to death. Then the third aggregate of conception ceases to function, and the practicer will be able to leap above and beyond the kalpa of turbid passions, the main cause of which was the seeming pervasiveness of his wrong thinking. Ananda, now that the practicer is free from anxiety, after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in the state of perfect dhyana and likes its pure brightness. But he may be tempted to concentrate on the one thought of skillfully advancing, thus submitting to the heavenly demon, who immediately possesses another man to harm the meditator. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma of the sutras and think that he too has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat reserved for reputable monks to teach him the Dharma. To show his skill, he will appear either as a monk, Indra, a woman or a nun, and his body will send out rays of light that illumine the dark bedroom. The practicer will mistake him for a bodhisattva and will believe what he says. As a result, his mind will waver, and he will break the rules and have desires. The man will speak of weal and woe, of a Buddha appearing at a certain place, of scorching fire in the kalpa of destruction, and of future fighting and wars to frighten and ruin other people. This is the strange ghost who has become a demon in his old age, and who now comes to trouble the practicer. When he is weary of his misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher, the possessed man, and pupil, the practicer, will suffer all the miseries inflicted by the royal law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara. But if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hell. Ananda, now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in the state of perfect dhyana. But he may be tempted to roam about in unknown regions, and so concentrates on the one thought of gaining further experience, thus succumbing to the heavenly demon who immediately possesses another man to harm the meditator. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma and think that he himself has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to teach him the Dharma. Without changing his own appearance, he will cause the practicer and those present to see their own radiant golden bodies seated on precious lotus flowers. The practicer will be deceived into mistaking the man for a bodhisattva and will believe what he says. As a result, he will indulge in luxurious ease, breaking the Buddha's rules and becoming licentious. The man will speak of Buddha appearing in the world, of a certain person at a given time, who is a Buddha in his transformation body, and of someone else who is a bodhisattva coming to convert people. The practicer is fascinated and admires what he has seen, thereby giving rise to wrong views, and so destroying his seed of wisdom. This is the drought ghost, who has become a demon in his old age, and now comes to trouble the practicer. When he is weary of his misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher and pupil will suffer the miseries inflicted by the law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara. But if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hell.